Well, hello, everybody. This is Jeff Wilson, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Education here in Arcadia. And this past Monday night, we did have a presentation to our parents about the transitions in middle school for mathematics and about the current state of the Common Core implementation. So I would like to share a few thoughts with you today for those of you who could not attend. So first of all, one of the premises we're operating from here in Arcadia is that the Common Core supports that students solve problems in very different ways. So I want to offer as an opportunity for you is to view this video. You can see it by going to the ucubed.org site. It's a great opportunity to see how kids learn differently. Joe Bowler is a world-renowned professor at Stanford University and an expert in Common Core mathematics, and I would encourage you to visit her site. Once again, it's called YOU, cubed, CUBED.org, and she has quite a few great videos to watch there. The one that we did share with the parents the other night was the one called How to Learn Math for Teachers and Parents, Number Talk. So take a look at that at your leisure. So moving into the presentation, we looked at the update on Common Core implementation, math pathways from grades 6 through 9, the placement criteria for accelerated courses, just sort of an update on Smarter Balanced and the state assessment update, options for struggling students and parents in some cases, and transitions to Arcadia High School. And then we spent a little bit of time answering a few questions. So the team that presented is before you here. You can pause and look at that, but we had full representation from all of our middle schools, from our high school, and also from a couple of our elementary schools. And a great team to work with, and we each had an opportunity to share with those who attended. So a quick update on the Common Core. Here in Arcadia, we are in year 2 of the Common Core implementation for mathematics at the middle school level. And we are using this year as an instructional materials pilot year. And part of that pilot is the idea of using open source materials, such as Engage New York and others. And we are also taking a look at a couple different textbooks and hope to make a great decision here at the end of the year with regards to instructional materials for next year. But it is a national debate, the debate between textbooks and open source materials. To invest in a 7-year implementation of a textbook is a very expensive endeavor, and not all the textbooks out there on the market are of the type of quality that we would hope with regards to Common Core implementation. So we're taking a very strong and deep look at what's offered and then coming up with the best options for our students. Also spent a few minutes talking about Local Control Accountability Plan. It's the plan that determines how we spend our educational dollars. And we do have several groups of stakeholders here in the district working on that LCAP plan as we speak. But we did devote quite a bit of the evening to what we're calling the Math Pathways Conundrum. And quite simply put, the state of California in implementing the Common Core state standards for mathematics, we added a level of mathematics to the educational matriculation of our students. Previously, Algebra 1 was an 8th grade math standard. Under the Common Core, the new Common Core Algebra 1 is a 9th grade standard, and there has been added to the middle school plate Math 8 set of Common Core standards that has to be delivered. So the conundrum is, how do you continue to offer the same program in our high school for all of our students, but especially for our best and brightest students who are trying to access Calculus BC by their junior year, while at the same time meeting the needs of all of our kids with Common Core state standards? So jumping right in this conundrum, we're committed here in Arcadia to meeting the needs of all of our students, including our highest performers. We like to talk about them as natural math learners. These are kids that just sort of get it. They more than likely will be heading off to some type of a STEM education and STEM type career, which is STEM means science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. But we also are committed to meeting the needs of our later developers, those kids who maybe initially are not natural math learners, but have a developmental aspect to their learning where they catch up later. And we also want to make sure that we're addressing the needs of our struggling math learners. So the goal for us here in Arcadia in the math department is to prepare all of our students for a successful life beyond Arcadia High School to become world-class problem solvers, developers, entrepreneurs, and creators. So looking at the grade 6 math, 6 to 12 math course pathways, The California State Framework, which you can look up on the California Department of Education website, is very clear that Common Core Algebra 1 will be very crucial for a student's mathematics career. That appropriate foundational concepts should be taught at appropriate times. In other words, we should teach kids and meet them where they are in their development with regards to when and how we teach to them. Placement decisions should be team decisions by both teachers and instructional leaders based on quality measures. So moving along, looking at advanced learners and addressing their needs, the framework talks about these students needing to be appropriately challenged and engaged, that access to advanced placement calculus or statistics as high school seniors should be offered, that's in the framework, and that any earlier course sequences need to support this progression. So our challenge is to develop course sequences that appropriately support the needs of our advanced learners. The rigor of the new standards, the California standards, the new ones, the grade 8 standards, are of significantly higher rigor than the old Algebra 1 standards. Additionally, in the framework, we find that the new Algebra 1 builds on the Common Core standards for Math 8 and are correspondingly more advanced than the previous courses. And in designing a California standards aligned mathematics course pathway in middle school requires careful planning to ensure that all content and practice standards are fully addressed. So the bottom line for us here in Arcadia in looking at this math conundrum, it's imperative that middle school students demonstrate mastery over all K7 Common Core standards in order to accelerate their course sequence. So let me make sure you understand that's not a mistake there. The framework does talk in terms of if kids are accelerated learners, that they are able to be proficient in upper division mathematics if they master the K7 standards. So then the job of, as they move forward, is for our teachers to provide them the opportunity to also learn those 8th grade standards that they might miss. So acceleration in the framework, it talks about decisions needing to accelerate students should not be rushed. That decisions to accelerate students before 9th grade requires solid evidence of mastery of prerequisite standards. That compacted courses should be the same content as the regular Common Core courses, and that there's an encouragement for all students to take 4 years of mathematics in high school. So more than rushing through the math, it's important that they get 4 years of math. Mr. Brad Smith from Dana Middle School next shared about the process that we arrived at as far as being able to identify a course pathway. He led over the course of the 7 minimum days that you experienced this year, a mathematics program design team. And what they were equally split between high school and middle school teachers. We had all 4 of our secondary schools represented. They examined and deconstructed Common Core standards. They researched other school districts that were like us. And they took a look at the UCs, the University of California, and what their expectations were. They engaged in a healthy dialogue or debate about how to best deliver math content to all students. And they made recommendations of math pathways to the Board of Education. So this was a year-long process. I just wanted you to see these dates up here. And the fact is that the group worked between September and May of 2015, that the Arcadia Unified School Board was kept abreast of the progress through information items, that we did have a K-12 or TK-12 math summit, and that at that summit we were able to narrow our focus to some viable pathways for our kids. Followed that with a parent roundtable where we got input from parents about the needs of their children. And then, of course, moved on to board information and action items. And then this past Monday, we did have the parent math presentation at the PAC. The significance of their work was that this is an extremely important issue for parents, teachers, and students. There's a strongly held community value to maintain our most rigorous pathway through AP Calc BC and AP Statistics, and that we understand that making ill-informed decisions might have negative implications on our students' college and life interests. And so we want to really operate from this idea of the Hippocratic Oath of Education, which is this idea of first do no harm. So we don't want to do anything that's going to harm our present or future students. So we will proceed very carefully on how we roll out these math pathways. So here's the traditional pathway as provided for in the Common Core State Standards. If a student was a normal, proficient student, this would be the pathway that they would take through any school really here in California. They would go through the Common Core Math 6, the Math 7, the Math 8, algebra, geometry. Their 11th grade year, they'd have algebra 2. And their 12th grade year, they would have, for better or worse, we call a math selective. They'd have a choice of a number of different math courses to take at that point. But looking at what we're looking at here in Arcadia, and you might want to pause the video here for a moment to take a look at this. And you could find in the left column the grade level, the current cohort, where they sit today. And that next column over is their course this year in 14-15. And then you can follow their educational journey across till their graduation. So for that upper group, current fifth graders, they are the class of 2022, hard to believe. And if you follow that top line across, you will see the traditional pathway. But there are acceleration points here as well. And so you might see that students who come out of fifth grade this year who are identified for the highly accelerated program, we are providing an opportunity for those students to test and then provide them an opportunity through an online blend or a blended course, the chance to fill in those gaps that they might need from Math 6 so that they could accelerate into Math 7-8. I'm circling it here with my cursor in their sixth grade year. Now that's a big jump to go from fifth grade all the way up to a Math 7-8 course. But these are the kids I talked about who are the natural math learners who more than likely have mastered quite a few of the Math 6 standards already. And we will be providing an opportunity to find out what their gaps in learning are and then to address those gaps this summer through a summer acceleration course that we'll give you more information about later. But again, you follow their pathway to high school, you see that they get to that AP Calculus BC course as juniors and then AP Stats as seniors. And you can follow current grade levels all along here. Here's current sixth grade math, 7th and 8th. And I do want you to notice the little tiny letters in between that talk about possible summer accelerations. Our next step would be studying with our teacher group. How can we allow students who develop later the opportunity to accelerate into other courses? And so that is something we will be addressing as we move along. It's a lot to look at, I know. So here's a simplified version. If kids are currently in fifth grade, coming out of fifth grade, these are the two possible course pathways for next year. If they're currently in sixth and they're going to seventh grade, then their pathway is here. As you see, they might have an opportunity to either take the regular course of Math 7, or they could accelerate one level to Math 7-8, or if they're kids who are currently in sixth grade who are of the double accelerated nature, they would go on to Common Core Algebra 1 as seventh grade. Our current seventh graders going to eighth, you see the choices before you, again, based on their performance and their developmental needs. And then students who are currently in eighth and heading off to high school are going to have these possible course pathways. So that's a quick look as to what students might be taking from where they are now. So Mr. Bruce from First Avenue spent a little bit of time talking about placement criteria for kids who are currently in fifth grade. Really, it has to do with kids wherever they are in the math matriculation right now. As we look at how students might accelerate, in previous years, you'll see in that yellow box up here on top, previous years we talked in terms of focusing on repeated assessments to identify accelerated students. The new focus is more about appropriate placement of all students. So looking at every student's individual needs and every student's individual performance and then identifying a program for them. So looking at these 5 bullets real quickly, we're looking at consistent placement for all students, using existing and new valid and reliable data to place kids, making sure that we're using a research base to identify learners. There's going to be teacher rubrics that we use in order to help identify accelerated students based on their maturity, their persistence, their problem-solving organization, and their peer collaboration. And then using these multiple measures for appropriate placement. Dr. Hacking from Dana spent a few minutes talking about the current state of Smarter Balance. Not a whole lot new there, except our kids are engaged in that right now. The grade level participations are here. You can see that. Kids are in grades 3 through 8 and grade 11 are participating. They're taking the ELA short answer, fill in multiple choice and performance tasks, and the same with math. And also, if you want any more information about Smarter Balance, we have provided the website link here, the URL, and you can take a look at that. We are continuing to give the California Standards Test in science as dictated or as determined by the California Department of Education for grades 5, 8, and 11. And this will continue for the next 2 years. We just learned that. So another video here, if you're interested in looking at this video, it's actually quite a good video. You should go to YouTube and put in the search bar there, why Common Core math problems look so weird. And it'll give you a little bit of insight into, as you as parents see some of these new types of programs coming home, and you scratch your head and think, what is that? That doesn't look like the math I used to do. This might give you some insight into the reasons behind some of the discomfort you might be feeling. So take a look at the video on YouTube, why Common Core math problems look so weird. I think you'll enjoy that. So Mr. Acker spent some time from Foothills Middle School talking about how to support struggling learners. You can take a look at some of those bulleted items here, but we are committed to providing these parent nights and early communication intervention, differentiated instruction within the classroom to really address the individual needs of students, various math labs at different sites based on the needs of their kids, and then ongoing home to school communication via webcasts and peach jar social media, the phone and email blasts like you're used to, and then providing resources for struggling students. We've provided a couple slides here about those resources. First of all, I really encourage you to use the parent portal on PowerSchool if you don't do that already, to keep a real-time view to how your students are doing. The whole home to school communication piece we just talked about, helping your students become organized is another key component of helping struggling students. Really encourage your students to be self-advocates and ask questions in class. Encourage the idea of wonder, that look for math in everyday life. And I know Mr. Acker used a great illustration about how in the good old days, when we go to a restaurant and we give our cash to the waitress, they would come back and they'd count back change to us. Or you go to a retail establishment and they'd count backwards. That's kind of a lost art now. And that it's sort of one of those wonders of life, like every day how math plays itself out. Maybe you're having carpet installed in your house. You can help your child figure out how many square yards of carpet you might need. But talk about math with your kid. Encourage them to look for the wonder of math out there in society and out there in our everyday lives. And then support their perseverance. Really encourage them to stay strong, to remain consistent, and to finish the job. And if kids develop those persevering skills, they'll have a much better chance of succeeding in high school and college. And then some online resources. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but here are 10 websites you might want to visit that are great resources for helping your students with math. Here's the first 5. You can pause here and write these down or screenshot them or go take a look at them. And then the next 5 as well. And, Khan Academy is a big one. I like it. Number 2. One of my favorites is the Wolfram Alpha site, where you can literally put virtually any math problem into the search bar and you're going to get an explained answer. And it's a great resource for all of our kids. So Mr. John Tung, our assistant principal at the high school next, talked about the transition to high school, talked about building a strong foundation or a solid foundation in middle school, really taking the time to explore what your options are when you get to the high school and connecting with something other than your academic load. He talked about creating balance in your life, that kids can become overwhelmed with the homework load sometimes at the high school, or they might get themselves involved in a particular activity that overwhelms them with time, but to find that balance and manage your time in high school. And those are 4 keys to success. And then finally, we just had some closing thoughts, and here they are. The Common Core, we're on a pathway of implementation. It's guided by multiple stakeholders. We have a board-adopted math pathway that provides appropriate access to all of our students for acceleration. We look at kids taking coursework at a developmental level as ability grouping, but not tracking. Tracking, sort of a negative word. The connotations about tracking are that a kid gets into a track at an early age and is stuck there, and that there's no way for other kids to get into that track. Whereas ability grouping, you go and meet the kids' needs where they are, and you make sure that you level kids where they're supposed to be at any given time in their educational journey. Also talked about early intervention for struggling students and providing multiple on-ramps for developing students. And then that we're going to continue to refine this program over the coming years. Spent some time getting Q&A, question and answer, and had some great questions. And we'll be presenting some of those questions online over the next couple of weeks. And that was about it. So I want to thank you for spending some time here on this presentation. There is a place for you to go to provide us some feedback. It's you see it here on your screen. If you go to www.govote.at and put that, and you do that on your smartphone, or you can do it on your laptop or your tablet, and put in the code 569781. There are 4 questions there. We would love your feedback on those questions. It will help us to know how to communicate with you better in the future. And with that, I want to thank you for spending some time with me today. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I hope it was informative. And if you have any questions, be sure to talk to your principal or to email any one of us. So thank you and have a great, great day.